One of the things I like to do when I do the acrylic underpainting is I like to kind of leave some of that in there. I'm trying to create depth and also interest in what's going on. I have decoupage paper there, so I'm not really sure how much of that I'll leave. I started to work some greens in here. Now, I'm just gonna mix some paints up. That's actually Viridian green, if you can believe that. When you mix that, it almost looks like an aqua color. I just added some yellow ochre to it. And I'm just kind of playing. I'm not really sure. I kind of like that little piece of paper there. What you want to do when you're starting a painting is sort of create interest and lightness. Now that's still the Viridian green, but now I've just added some white to it. I'm going to add a little bit more. You can see on my palette. I'm going to add a little bit more, so that's the color I just put on, and this is the new color because I want to create this area of light and dark. Now I left a little bit of that paper showing through. One of the things I like to do is take my paper towel when I'm working and just kind of wipe some off, and you can see what creates behind it. It's really interesting. When I work in my studio, I work in LED natural lighting. The lighting that's above my head is a big, those tube lights, but I bought them so they had natural light rather than, you know, a blue cast light. So I'm just sort of working through here. I really have no plan at this point other than figuring out lights and darks and where I want to add some interest. But I just kind of wanted to show you some of my process. I have a lot of light area in here, and now I'm starting, as I mapped out in my acrylic painting, I have some darker areas there. So now I put brown in as my acrylic paint, but I'm going to add some dioxazine purple to the brown, and it makes the brown just a little bit more violet. No, that's a little too violet. I'm going to add a little more brown to that, darken it up a little. I'm just going by what my map said. Typically I start off, I'm breaking my own rules. I start off with a larger brush. I think that larger, when you first start out and you're just kind of playing, don't get caught up in an idea of what it has to be. I'm just sort of following my pattern, what I created for lights and darks right now. And I like the idea of that paper in there, so although I did cover that, I'm just going to take that, not completely, it's still covered in the dark. Now that's not really as dark as I want it to be, so I'm going to add a little bit of Mars Black. That's a little better. See, I'm just creating depth here. Now I have these little yellow spots marked to myself because I wanted to have little yellow flowers in between this kind of brown violet color, which would be a nice complement color. Now, I love that paper in there. Now, since I've got my dark color on that big brush, I'm just gonna sort of, sorry, I'm stepping in front of the camera. I'm such a camera hog. I just want to create little yellow pops here so I know. And there's no rule. I'm just going, you know, yellow would look good with that. I think as you start to work, start to have your own voice when you're painting, it doesn't really matter at this point in time. I mean, in terms of the painting, I'm just saying, I kind of like a yellow in there. And I'm kind of moving the brush around. It's really an interesting game right now because at this phase in the painting, there's kind of no rules. I gotta go back to my big brush. So basically what I'll use is I'll use my big brush for the dark stuff right now. I know this is gonna be dark. And what you wanna do, especially, there's little bits There's little bits right here that I did in light, so I'm gonna mix that color, the one I just mixed, with this yellow ochre, which will lighten that up a little bit and give it a little bit more depth than just one solid color. And I'm keeping my reds here. I'm not gonna get involved in the red right now because I'm gonna get distracted, which happens a lot. But, so I went back to my dark color. I wanna leave that little light. I don't know why I put that in there, but in the beginning with the acrylic, the spot. But do you see how I haven't really done too much in here yet? All I'm doing is I'm creating the light and the dark. This is kind of more like a yellow ochre color. I might lighten that up. I'm gonna get my other paintbrush. I had green on that, so I'll rinse that out. I'm gonna get my yellow, maybe a little lighter yellow. And now I need to add some white. I wanna kind of create some depth here. I don't wanna do any solid stuff yet. That's a little too light for me. We'll go a little darker. Nope, not dark enough. Now, that's a really subtle change, but it takes you to a different place. I'm gonna leave that leaf for now, because I don't know what I'm gonna do with that yet. What was that color? That's a red. I have a couple different reds here on my palette. Nothing, I'm not gonna get caught up right now in details, because that's the mistake people make. That's a little too pink. So now I'm gonna grab my R&F pigment stick, which is my handy dandy. And I'm just gonna create some stuff there. I'm gonna grab another brush because I'm using a different color. Now I like that, but now I wanna, while I'm here, I'm just gonna give it a little more depth. And I like that red. I need to add a red. I like that. I like that. That's, I don't like these two sizes the exact same. So I'm gonna make this one a little bit bigger. And I'm gonna go back to my R&F pigment stick. Now, one of the things I do, I don't know, I gotta take the paintbrush out of my mouth to talk. I like to kind of not have solid lines there. So this is a line I just created with the stick. So I'm gonna take that and just kind of brush along there. Maybe I'll leave that little space there. Okay. So now I've just started to create those flowers. This right now is distracting me. I don't like the way that looks because it looks too floral and it's supposed to be kind of the background thing going on. So I'm gonna wipe that down a little bit. Yeah, that's better. I'm just trying to create depth right now. And I wanna show you one other thing. I have these little yellow flowers in here, these little yellow things. And I know that when I wanna go up here, I'm gonna wanna do, grab a littler, smaller brush. As I go up, as I talked about in the other video, I wanna create smaller ones coming up here. So I'm just gonna put little markers to myself, right? Just like I did with the decoupage and to make it look as if the flowers are getting smaller as they're getting to the top. And all it's doing is creating depth for me right now. So I'm gonna take a little yellow ochre. No rules, just playing right now. And I'm just kind of moving my brush around, finding out what works. I've got a lot of colors on my palette right now. Now, the beautiful thing about oil paint, which I think is not really true in watercolor paint, is that it's very forgiving. Let's say that I put all this on here and I decide when I come back tomorrow or whenever, I don't like the way it looks. I can wait a few days and just come back to it and go over it. And that's one of the reasons I started using oil paint. And you can do the same with acrylic, but oil is, I think it's just a little bit richer than the acrylic. Anyway, that's what I like about it. I don't like feeling trapped, I guess, in a lot of this stuff. I don't like feeling like Oh, that's my final decision. And I think you kind of have to do that in watercolor, which you really don't in oil paint. So I'm gonna go back here to the top because I feel like this needs some depth here. It needs a little bit. I'm not doing solid lines. I'm not making a straight line. I'm kind of playing around with it. I like the fact that this paper is still in here. I don't like this sharp line. So I'm gonna probably go over that. I still have that Viridian green on my brush. Now that looks, I'm just gonna create this. It's a little harsh there. I do go through a lot of paper towels. Another thing I don't cheap out on is paper towels because I really like using, I hate to say a brand name, but I like using Bounty paper towels because they don't have all these fuzzy sticky things that grab in the painting. So basically I'm working like right in this little section. Typically what I do is I start in the right corner, but for some reason I wanted to start here today. So even though this is the same color green, right? This is all Viridian green. There's an acrylic color behind here and then the Viridian green on top. But you notice that there's a lot of different depth within that color, okay? I added some yellow ochre here. So even in this little space, you have a lot of depth in there. Now, what I will do is I'm gonna let this dry for a few minutes. Probably take a break because I've been down here for a while. And start working on it a little bit more, and I'll do another video.